Hello and welcome to another Hacks Not Required. I'm Dante from Lomana, and in this episode we're going to be showing you how to blow things up and generally cause mayhem with Overwatch's resident pyromaniac, Junkrat. An explosives-obsessed survivor of the Australian Omnian disaster and resident of Junkertown, Junkrat was a relative nobody until he stumbled upon a powerful secret, marking him as a wanted man. Between his grenade launcher, concussion mine and traps, Junkrat is an excellent defender, able to utilise line of sight to his advantage alongside some of the highest damage output in the game. The majority of Junkrat's strength stems from his grenade launcher, appropriate for someone with his passion of blowing things up. The grenades it fires bounce off walls and loop over terrain, allowing him to attack other characters outside of line of sight and therefore in relative safety. Direct hits cause the grenades to explode immediately and will deal a very respectable 120 damage, but AoE splash hits are far from insignificant. As a result, Junkrat can be an excellent counter to stationary defense when attacking, or lock down tight spaces and deny progress when on the defensive. His traps can lock a single enemy in place for 3 whole seconds, a lifetime in a game as fast paced as Overwatch, making direct hits much easier for you and your teammates. This is often combined with his concussion mine, which does the same damage as a direct hit, but can be manually placed and triggered. Added together, this hits for over 200 damage, enough to kill almost any usual flanking character. The concussion mine is also a fantastic movement tool for Junkrat, granting him vertical movement and escape possibilities. Although dying is generally something you want to avoid at some point, it's going to happen. Junkrat's passive kicks in here, and upon death he unleashes a band of grenades that explode after a few seconds, dealing up to 300 damage to anyone nearby. Although this does not guarantee a kill, it can catch up those who are aggressive or dumb enough to walk near you as you die. And finally, Junkrat's ultimate ability, Riptire. This thing can be truly devastating. Able to climb up walls, and with surprisingly long lifespan, Junkrat can guide the tire around the map at will. With a large explosion radius and up to 600 damage, it can devastate multiple enemies, so naturally combos well with any area control effects such as Reinhardt's Earth Shatter or Zai's Gravitation Surge. Although Junkrat is easily one of the highest damage characters in the game, he is a bit of a glass cannon, having no actual movement ability beyond his concussion mine. Due to the way his grenade launcher works, he is also extremely vulnerable to long-range attacks. This is even more true if they come from above, making Pharah his most obvious counterpick. A well-placed trap can lock down a target, but unfortunately they are visible and can be destroyed, leaving them vulnerable to direct fire and especially area of effect weapons. Thankfully they are not affected by your own grenades, you however are, so be careful not to walk over them or bounce them back towards yourself. It can make for a rather embarrassing death. In a 1v1 fight, Junkrat can also find himself at a disadvantage if you're caught in the open. At this point, you're entirely reliant on your concussion mine landing or getting a direct hit with a grenade, something that can be rather tricky against a good and manoeuvrable opponent. Weirdly, one of his other weaknesses can come from his ultimate, something not true of very many characters. While powerful, his Riptire is destroyable by the enemy team and is relatively fragile at only 100 hit points. Smart opposition will listen out for your signature yell and train their weapons on the tire, so make sure you're as stealthy with it as possible. Traps have many uses that aren't always apparent. Practicing these will help improve your overall play drastically. First off, your trap, which is often used to cover a doorway or flanking position, only has a short range, but with practice, you can use them in a more reactionary way. A charging Reinhardt can be stopped in his tracks by a well-placed steel trap, a leaping Winston can have his landing anticipated, or you negate the 1v1 weakness mentioned earlier by locking your opponent in place. Concussion mines are a brief but powerful movement ability, so practice when to use them as such. Usually you'll have to pick between using them offensively or defensively, so make sure you're picking the right option at the right time. With them you can propel yourself into the air higher than most other characters, and by jumping as they explode you gain a little more height and momentum. For that reason, Junkrat is one of the few characters able to pass through high terrain such as the windows on King's Row or over the wall on Temple of Anubis. While not as intuitive or simple as Lucio's Soundwave, they can also be used to keep attackers at bay, either by knocking them off ledges or away long enough for you to retreat. Junkrat is always at the advantage if you can break line of sight and force your enemies into confined spaces, so use all of your abilities to make sure this happens. After all, you never want to chase a fleeing Junkrat. As we said earlier, your Riptire is truly devastating if it lands, but it is vulnerable. With only 100 HP, many attacks will destroy it before it can ever reach a target. To counter this, use it to surprise enemies. If they have time to prepare for it, then it's unlikely you'll do any damage, but if they're distracted, it can kill an entire enemy team, swinging any match into your favour. Learn each map, where bottlenecks occur, and learn paths that the Riptire can take while under cover for as long as possible. If you have to move it out into the open, then move it erratically. While not usually helpful, do remember that you can steer the tire over health packs, They will heal it, but also remember it can get caught in things like Zarya ults. Finally, don't forget Junkrat himself is vulnerable while you're steering the tyre. As such, try to balance safety of location versus possible reward of getting a killer Q off. Thanks for watching this episode of Hacks Not Required. Let us know what you think in the comments section below. Are there any tips or tricks we've missed? Anything new you've learned and are eager to try out? If you did like this episode, please hit that like button, and if you haven't already, please subscribe. Next time out, Kurz will be running you through the particle cannon wielding weightlifter, Zarya. And until next time, I've been Dantir, thanks for watching.